Unfiltered by Jade.
Jade.
Welcome to the Unfiltered by Jade, where we educate, empower, and entertain. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, download, donate, and make everybody know about this.
Beats by RB Records.
Shopping assistance, your style, your budget. Our services include online and local shopping for individuals and businesses, personal shopping, purchasing of company and office supplies, importing and exporting small packages across Jamaica and worldwide, and helping you find unique gifts and items for all events and occasions. Contact us at 876-919-5195 or shoppingassistance2015@gmail.com. Shopping Assistance, your style, your budget.
Welcome back to the Unfiltered by Jade. Today I'm excited to speak with our guests. We have two of them. We have Kereisia Brown, Lyesam, and we have Michele, Rufus. And we're here to speak about the anthology book Beyond Surviving that came out recently. And they both have chapters in the book. One of them is Marriage is Honorable, and that's by Mrs. Lyesam, and Mother, the Universal Language, and that's by Mrs. Rufus. So I'm excited to talk to you about them. Michele is an author, entrepreneur, mom, and wife. And Kereisia is an author, speaker, educator, and life coach. Hello, ladies.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am great.
I'm excited.
Lovely. So let's jump in the book. So first and foremost, what was the most challenging aspect of dealing with your loss, whether from a divorce or business, and how did you find the strength to rebuild?
Okay. Well, I can hop on this question. I would have to say the most challenging aspect of dealing with the divorce is feeling that, you failed in cultivating like the most important thing for myself in our first ministry, according to the Bible, which is your family. I really struggled with that, feeling like a failure. I dealt with the disappointment of failing myself, like as a wife, feeling that I didn't put my all into it or I didn't try everything that I could to preserve the marriage, feeling like I failed God, because He doesn't desire for us to be divorced and marriage
Right.
honorable, as well as failing my children. At that time, we had 3 children. And so, them dealing with that, not being in the house, and just a totally different environment by me being the main person that they saw, and then every other weekends and the schedule changes and conflicts. It really was a struggle, and oftentimes it seems as if there was like no redemption in my mind at that time. And like I couldn't come back from it. But I did understand that God is gracious and all things work together, for my good, because I do love the Lord. So that was definitely a challenge, me just dealing with feeling like a failure in that aspect. I did have challenges with my business as well. At one point in time, I had an event space in Chicago, and I did have to close it due to unfortunate circumstances with my neighboring business owner and some violence, and then the area wasn't the best. But I dealt with that as well, just changing my perspective and having an open mind, taking it not as a loss, but as a lesson. And from everything that I experienced, wanting to apply that and learning from whatever the shortcomings or the mishaps were from that. So I think that's how I found strength to rebuild, by just changing my perspective and taking it from the negative and flipping it to a positive and taking something from it.
Lovely. Kereisia?
Okay. When it comes on to dealing with loss, for me, when you are you have just entered into marriage. Marriage is really a goal. And when you would have achieved it and it really happens, as a couple, you are thrilled, you're ready to work together to help each other to fulfill the goals, your goals within the marriage. But sometimes after you enter marriage, the whole thrill, the whole excitement sometimes is taken away gradually because of what you face immediately. Sometimes that's the reason why people, when they look on, they might be afraid to enter, but they need not to be afraid to enter. Because in my case, myself and my husband, we started a business. And when we started the business, it was going on pretty good. It was profitable until we started encountering a lot of challenges. And for this business was really in the transportation sector here in Jamaica. But we face a lot of issues. It's not that the business was not managed. We weren't managing the business properly, but based on my own evaluation and confirmation, I believe that the business was under a spiritual attack. And we were living in a rural area. And me working with my husband, it would have been, an achievement for him in the sense that that dream that we would have been talking about even before we entered marriage is one that we really saw fulfilled immediately. The Lord would have provided so that we could have started that business. And to see that it was impacted where we had to be spending money for mechanic work, consistently. It was not like it's a one-off. It was like every other week. I mean, it was really not easy because we were planning to buy another vehicle and we had to use that money to pay for engine issues, just all sorts of mechanical issues. And what that does was to really drain our pockets until, afterwards my husband had to give up that business. And so that's the time when I found myself, having to take on the role as a breadwinner and also had to deal with the spiritual attacks that I faced. And so it was never easy. You felt as though, you enter into marriage and you are thrilled, you're excited. But now you're faced with issues in the community, in the family, and also in the church, not just with the business. Sometimes when I look back on it, I saw some sense of jealousy and so on. And so as a result of that, I felt depressed. It's like I'm wondering to myself, what is this? How am I going to navigate this? Because now my finances were under attack. I had to be ensuring that everything goes well because this was the sole business of my husband. And all the financial resources were depleted. And so I had to ensure that, I work more, I take on additional jobs in the night in terms of online because I'm an educator. So I found myself start teaching like for 5 nights, and I have to be ensuring that I take care of my family. And in my brain or in my mind or in my heart, I said to myself, I did say, whether sickness or in health or so on. So I told myself that I love my husband and I have to stand up to this. Reason being, I've had past situations that I've had encounters where I had to be fighting spiritually, physically, and emotionally. And I think as we go on and we talk about resilience, I'll be able to talk more about that. I felt as though I was plunged into a ditch. I felt as though the struggles, they were real. I felt like I couldn't make it. I felt depressed. I feel stressed out. But I am so happy that I was able to be determined and really depend on my faith to keep me to the end.
Okay, so we're going to talk about even you stepping into the role of breadwinner later on.
Right.
Even for both of you, how that's impacted you guys, because there's a lot that's happened with both of you interchangeably, where we have issues in our marriage, with financial issues, there is continuing to sometimes fight for things. You know, sometimes even with both of you, trying to fight for a marriage or trying to fight for your relationship, even though sometimes there are hardship in there. And sometimes people will say when you see hardship, you just leave at first go, you know, is it worth it? And even for you, Kereisia, looking at you taking on that certain role and you saying, you know, we're gonna do this because I love my husband. A lot of women not doing it. They ain't gonna do that. And even Michele, even reading your story and you leaving and you know, you were trying to make it work and there's a lot of things that I saw that both of you did, right? These days, a lot of people aren't gonna put in that kind of work. Because sometimes they'll prefer choose, you know, I could do this by myself without having to fight.
I can do that all by myself.
That is right. That is yes, that's exactly what they were saying. Exactly what they were saying. I want to know how did facing these challenges though, in your upbringing, because you both had faced some challenges growing up. How did that shape your resilience and determination in adulthood? Because what you faced in adulthood, or what you're even still facing to this point, it had to do with how you did.
Okay, all right, I'll go first. All right, so growing up from my childhood days, I've faced several challenges, and as I would have written in the book, that I believe that, you know, these challenges really prepared me so that I can, you know, hold on and fight to the end. So the challenges that I faced would have been where I lost my dad from I was about 12, 13, and my father and my mother, they had me when they were teenagers. But my father was more working, and I had a good relationship with my father, and he died as a result of a terminal illness. And so he died suddenly. And then he would have left some form of inheritance for me, and I have a sister, and we would have lost it to family members. It was not given to us. Even as an adult, you know, I saw that maybe if I had gotten that inheritance, it would have assisted me more. I also face where I had glaucoma. I say had because God is a good God. When I was 25, I found out that I had glaucoma, and I just finished college, and my question was like, Lord, I'm just starting life. I mean, why am I faced with this situation? And I've always, in my young years, faced some form of financial crisis because of the limited financial resources that I had. Simple because I grew up with my grandparents who would have grown their 8 children. My grandfather, my grandmother, they didn't know their fathers. My grandfather was a fisherman and a mason, and my grandmother was a housewife. And so they were very poor, but very poor and uneducated, but they knew what it is to work towards their goals and to achieve them. And I would have learned a lot from them, growing up with them in terms of relationship wise, you know, sticking with each other through the ups and the down. And I think that that's one of the number one lessons that I would have learned that, you know, allow me today to be able to be so resilient, because I've seen, you know, good times, bad times. I've learned to be contented even with what I had to eat and so on. And by faith, even when I decided that I was going to go to college, and I didn't even know where the school fee was coming, but my strong faith in the Lord, you know, and with being strategic. I remember when I was growing up, my grandparents, and my brother, it's two of us that my grandparents grew along with their 8 children. We had to go to the play field and sell peanuts and sell bag ice in Jamaica. That is like juice in a bag whenever they're having like football matches and so on. I can recall, I said to myself, because I'm currently writing another book, you know, to share how resilience has allowed me to be where I'm at, specifically for college students and so on. Because I remember when I was going to primary school, we sold so much peanut that I described it as peanut being the tile for the floor because we sold so much peanuts and we used to crack stones. because my grandfather was a mason, so we had to go outside, get the bigger stones, crack them smaller so that he could get it. And because of that, I believe that those challenges caused me to be a stronger person. It caused me to be confident. It caused me to be one that is adaptable to any situation that I'm faced with. And as a result of that, I can say that these challenges that I've faced in life allows me today to be able to go through the challenges that I face in my marriage. And I mean, God is taking me out. I believe that I'm at a better place than where I was. I don't think that I am so depressed as I was depressed. And I really feel like I am strong enough to be able to push through and to make it. So those are these challenges that I would have faced from a young girl. One thing I remember, even in the religious arena. I mean, I never had any financial resource. And you have your aunt living in America, and maybe one time per year they will send a barrel, send you a new clothes. And you're so happy when you get it. And this is the only clothes that you're going to wear maybe every Sunday to church or every time. And so for me, I faced where people would criticize me, laugh after me, and so on. But one thing I always say to myself, because I'm intrinsically motivated, I say to myself, once they're not smelling my arm or even my mouth, I'm fine. Because as the scripture says, for I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. And that was what caused me. When people say when you're doing public speaking, then you need to look above, the head of your audience. And so those were the words written in the Bible, along with other motivational support, where I just look above everybody's head. I didn't see anybody. It doesn't matter what you were saying to me, right? I believe that and I attribute it to my grandparents. They taught me how to be resilient. They taught me that if life is tough, you need to be tough. And so with that, I was able to venture into marriage. Even though I was plunged into a situation, I was able to draw back on, being strong and adaptable and confident so that I can.
And everything that you have learned.
Right. But there's one thing I want to say, that sometimes it's not that women, they don't want to push through. As the book says, beyond survival to thriving. Sometimes it's a journey, and sometimes in the surviving stage, just like with Michele here, it takes two to really, reach the finishing line, reach that line of comeback. And so in the surviving part of your journey, if we really don't communicate with each other, if we really don't understand that this is a season and work together, love and respect each other. So it's not just Kereisia alone, all right? Because you need more than one ingredients to make a cake. So it takes myself and my husband working together as a couple, facing the challenges together, scheduling ourselves, taking on a different role, and make it work. It does not mean that even though I was the breadwinner, that my husband was not the husband. He was still the husband, the head of the house. But I just had to take on some aspects so that.
Powerful. So, as far as facing challenges and my upbringing that shaped my resilience and determination as an adult, I would say as early as I can remember, the most impacting challenges I had were my father passing at the age of 1, molestation from multiple males in my family and even female as a child, all the way up until I would say early adolescent, poverty, and then abuse from my stepdad. And I think these things did definitely affect me in a major way. However, they also taught me early that there was nothing that I couldn't overcome. They built, I would say, my ability to persevere and really laid the foundation for me to be tenacious, which brought me through so many obstacles. There was just so many things. I used to grow up and just be like, why me? I always felt like it was me, like the negativity or the heartbreak or the disappointment. Somehow, I attracted that. And I know that that's not true now, but those things definitely definitely shaped the woman that I am now. My family going through, and then like when I really think about it, my mom was a widow with 3 kids at the age of 20. So my dad was like her first love, everything. Died in a truck accident. He was a truck driver. When I was 1, she was pregnant with my little sister at that time, 20, and then she had a 3-year-old, which was my big sister. And so as a 20, like I couldn't imagine. I'm 34 now. I couldn't, being 20, your first love, everything, and then all of that happening. And so she wasn't properly prepared, I believe, emotionally to deal with that and to still, kind of provide a safe and healthy environment emotionally for us. And so as we grew up, she found love again very quickly. And I love my stepdad now. He's apologized since, but it wasn't the best representation of a father figure in our life. My mom and him actually grew on to have 2 additional children. So together, so it was 5 children in the household with us growing up, and then his stepson lived with us for a period of time. And him, my stepbrother, and one of my cousins from like down south, they really kind of introduced me very, very early into a lot of inappropriate actions, and I would say as early as like 5. And it was just so many things that happened to me that I really used to question, like, am I supposed to be here? Like, am I just attracting, or am I doing something to make these things happen, to draw my family members or, close people that I know to me to do these things? But I had to understand that it wasn't me, and it did cause me to become more determined as an adult to really help others, to bring that awareness. Even with my children, we have a very, very open relationship. Like I tell them, I didn't used to feel safe and even confident enough to tell my mom about what was happening. I felt like I would get in trouble. I felt like it was my fault, and it happens in our community so much. It's so prevalent. And so thank God, to my knowledge, nothing has happened to my children, but I always wanted to like foster and have that type of open communication for them so that they will be able to communicate to stop anything, God forbid, that may happen. And then, the poverty, we were very unstable. I had so many grammar schools, so many houses, stayed with family, and even as a early adult, friends, because it just wasn't, it was that spirit of poverty, I think, that was my family. And it wasn't just my mom, it was even before her. And so all of these things definitely would cause somebody to maybe feel like, hey, life isn't great, or I have to continue on with these cycles. But they really pushed me, thank God, to just change the trajectory of my family and do things differently. So the challenges from my upbringing, they definitely shaped my resilience by just teaching me firsthand what I don't want to experience or for my children to experience in the future. So I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
You did. Yeah. So there's a lot of things in life that we go through that we don't understand how it affects us as an adult, even going through our different lifespans. So sometimes, we feel a certain way, or even we're not able to deal with issues in relationships, society, anything. And sometimes it goes back to, as a child, what happened, why I wasn't able to do so. And that is why looking at our lifespan, and even from a child growing up, teenage, young adult, where we are now, what happened to us, and how did it affect us, and how did it change our life on our trajectory. So even, Michele, you're able to change things about yourself that have happened, even not just from your generation, but the generations before. And you had to make a deliberate act to do so. And even before Kereisia, even things that had happened to you, you're able to change the trajectory of your life by making important decisions to say, hey, these are what had happened. I am not going to let that affect me going forward. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I put things in place, and that is vital. It's very important. How did stepping into the role of the breadwinner impact your relationship, both within your family and socially, and what mindset shifts did you have to make?
I have to smile a while ago, Jade.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can laugh now.
Oh yeah. No.
I can laugh. We have to be so truthful, Lord. To be a breadwinner, it's not easy. I shout it out to all the males
Mm.
out there. From a woman's perspective, but to be a breadwinner, especially if your spouse is not working, it's really not easy.
Oi.
Never
Listen.
easy. I can laugh now, but I had many times when I cried.
Oh yeah.
And I have my own vehicle, and I'm somebody who likes to give people a ride, but there are times where I say, no, I can't. Because, my
Mm-hmm.
vehicle was my safe haven. That's where I cry out to
Mm-hmm.
the Lord, the ugliest of way. And I cry out and I say, God, what is this? I say, Lord. And I ask the Lord a million times to help me, to deliver me. And some people might say that you didn't budget well, and people don't sometimes understand. Because look here, when is it when you find yourself where you get a call that the engine is destroyed and you have to pay 300 and something $1,000, and after you do that, then after the diff is not working. These are not things that you bring onto yourself. That
It's just one crisis after the
one
next.
Mhm.
crisis after the
Mm.
other. And
Welcome to adulthood.
control. Control. I remember I was stepping out of an office, and I give God thanks that He always told me to work or have good jobs. And I remember I just got a check, and when I got the check was like 300 and something dollars, 300 and something thousand Jamaican dollars. I'm sorry. And immediately I got a phone call from my husband. And I'm telling you again, I've seen, and we can talk from a spiritual perspective too, that, I just think that I was monitored, financially by Satan. But I'm overcoming by the blood of the Lamb, right? And I'm going to do more so by the word of my testimonies, because I'm going to, be able, and I thank you for this opportunity to be able to share with the world that, look here, when you find yourself in a particular situation, especially if you have the support in a relationship, don't give up, fight, right? So I've cried many times. I've prayed over and over and over and over. And when the Bible says pray without ceasing, but you're not seeing nothing happen. Right? And I've prayed over and over, and I felt I've never given up on the Lord though. I knew that He was going to come through. But we can't ignore how we feel. And there were many times I really felt low. I can say that I never felt like really walking out of my marriage, but I felt the negatives. And in terms of socially, sometimes people don't say certain things to you, The way that they say something is really saying to you that, hey, Kereisia, so and so and so. If your husband can't find a job, let's be truthful here, right?
No, because I was going to say it to you, because reading the book and seeing what you have even said, and earlier in the conversation when you said, your husband was still the husband he was supposed to be, meaning probably the leadership perspective and how God designed him to be, but you were the breadwinner. A lot of women are not going to agree with that statement. In terms of, if I am the breadwinner, I am the head because I'm the one that's making the decisions. A lot of women will have that disposition towards it.
And I
So the fact,
understand. But I want to change a perspective from my side and from what I've understood. Because being a husband is not just to provide financially, right?
Mhm.
Is it just to provide
Right.
financially? Can never be.
no, not at all.
That needs to be made, right?
Yes.
And love is not just giving the money, because there are a lot of women out there that they have men showering them with money, but they are not happy, right? So being the breadwinner should be the breadwinner for everything, every aspect of the marriage, in the sense that love, respect, money, taking care of the family, and all of that. Because, it's just a matter of perspective. And you see, until we go through certain things, then we will talk differently.
True.
And it's always good, like in forums like this, we be truthful and we explain, because in everything that we go through, it either changes our perspective or allows us to see things differently.
Yes.
Right? And not being a feminist per se, but with my husband was somebody who has always worked. My husband, he does a lot of things in terms of, he's very handy. I mean, his main job was, being a woodworker. He never worked. And so he went into Kingston and he started working in transportation. And so I met him there in Portmore, St. Catherine in Jamaica. And then he went overseas to Canada to work. And then because he would have met me, which is another story, he decided that he was going to come back from Canada. And so, I mean, when he came back from Canada, he says, all right, we're going to get married. So, you know what? I'm going to buy a vehicle. I'm going to buy a bus. I'm going to start a business. And what I want everybody to understand is that even though my husband would have started that business and me saying the breadwinner, there were many times when he would rise and fall in other areas because he moves from having a bus to having 3 trucks. And then when he had the 3 trucks, the same problem I was encountering with the bus is the same thing, right? Where we just kept spending. So it doesn't matter what business he was in, there was always something that was going on where we just had to spend. But because I had more of what would I say? I'm working with the government, so my job is more secured.
Stable.
Right, more stable.
It's more stable.
Right? I'm the one always being there, to really stand. So it's not a matter that my husband have never done anything and he was just sitting there. And ladies, if you find yourself as a breadwinner, and we just have to assess our own situation. It's a matter of assessing, because even when we had the truck per se, had another situation with his family. I mean, people come in and they start to do a lot of things, and from there, it led me to even leaving the home that we were building. And in the midst of it, how I ended up continuing being the breadwinner, said to me that, you know what, we're going to have to do something else. The opportunity came where we saw a piece of land, because now the family started fighting for the land and all manner of things started happening. But, I attribute this to say that, and you ask the question about, what happened to us from childhood, how it comes, to even affect us as adults. And I think that regardless of what you face, if we look on it and we assess it, it's only one thing sometimes that is fighting us. And that is, in essence, that financial spirit, if I should say. But financial is not a spirit. I hope it's the right thing I'm saying. I don't want people to, get it twisted. But there is just that monitoring spirit that is monitoring you. And it is real. I want people to know that it is real. That it will monitor you, to pressure you, to oppress you, to depress you. Because the plan of the enemy is to kill, steal, and destroy. But God come that we might have life and have it more abundantly. So in my case,
and I might add to that. Sorry, Kereisia. I'm sorry to cut you. I might add to that also. Even going back to your childhood, even what you had said in terms of finances and it being troubled and what you had to go through as a child, even with finances to coming up. That also may be something generational. That's right. If not for prayer, it may continue.
Yes, because I have it. I wrote it down as a generational curse. So it's a generational curse that you're battling with, but it comes in a different form, in the sense that somebody else might be sickness for another person in terms of spending their money. Right. But in my case, it's, being the breadwinner.
It's anything that you touch that's supposed to also bring in finances that the enemy used to take away from you.
Thank you so much.
So that is where your own is.
Yes.
And even looking at what you're saying, because I'm talking to women. And the thing is, there's a lot of, if women are single, they probably won't understand what it is to be in a marriage and fighting for something. They can't understand it. But also, there are people who probably have not gone through what you have gone through, or have not gone through what Michele has gone through, that will see issues in a marriage and say, I'm not doing that. And it's understandable, because if they haven't gone through certain things, that's not their fight. So if they have grown up in a particular way where they did not have to fight for love or fight to keep a marriage together or a relationship together, and they did not see that growing up now and being in something where they have to fight for it, it's not for them. And sometimes we have to also understand that, hey, you probably don't understand it, and it's okay. It's okay that you don't understand it. But I understand it, because from a child, this is what I've experienced, and I've seen that you have to fight for what you want. For other people, things come to you easy, and if it don't come to you easy, you don't want it, and it's okay. We all have our different fights, but it's important to know that, okay, not because this is not your fight, it's not worth it for me.
And sometimes they need to fight, because when you walk away from some things in the future, you're recognizing that, hey, if I held on some more, then I would have overcome it.
I'm thinking about it. So even reading both of your stories, there are things that both of you have gone through that there are people who have committed suicide for.
Yeah.
That's true, yes.
Right? Because they cannot manage the magnitude of the burden or the situations or issues that's coming at them. They cannot manage it because
so true.
That's not what they have grown up seeing or doing. And although we have to be realistic. We have to be realistic also. We have to be realistic about our truth. Because it's our truth. I mean, this is my second marriage. For Michele, you have gone through things in yours. For Kereisia, you have gone through things in yours. And the things that probably we have gone through, other people will look at it and say, I'm not doing that.
Yep.
I ain't doing that.
Separate and apart from Kereisia and my husband, we have to have a good support system, because it wasn't because of Kereisia. There were times when Kereisia felt as though she could not make it. So we have to have, and because of the good support system per se, people were praying for me, people were supporting me. One thing I want to outline is that I was grown to a teenage mom. So she never had the finances, when I was a child. My grandmother took care of me. But what I'm happy for and I'm grateful for is that, when I was going through this situation, God allowed her to take up that role and to really support me. And the beauty about it is that she has a good relationship with my husband, my family, they love my husband, and so on. So having the support system, that was what really kept me, because I could not do it alone. Because after I used up all the money I had, what would I do next? Maybe if I never had people praying for me and having the will and the determination and the support system, maybe I would have been the story like another person. So it's not because of Kereisia only. It's a mixture of things. First, I attribute it to God and faith, right? And he would have taken me through a journey where I had to use faith. Faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. So I'm like, God, I'm going to come through, but I don't know how I'm going to come through, And you say you're going to make a way where there seemed to be no way. Just like when I used to, attend Michael Teachers College. I remember when I decided that I was going to go, I never had any money. But God said, go up to Michael. And when I went up to Michael, because of obedience, things happened where, God just worked it out. He provided. And through the journey, he taught me of resources that I could use, like, selling things like phone cards and so on. I'll tell people his phone card take me through Teachers College. My grandparents could only provide a little food when I go back home. In fact, my grandmother said, Kereisia, how you make it? But it was through God, because I never had to do anything that is demeaning, because I trusted in God and he provided, right? So with that background, that experience, I'm like saying to God, I say, God, you said faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. God, I am going to come through. I don't know I'm going to come through. I feel like I can't make it. But you say I must pray, and I'm praying. There were times where I felt as though I didn't want to pray. And God is so good. Somebody who I have good relationship with would call me and say, the Lord says I'm to pray for you. And I said, my child, thank you so much. Right? And there were times when I'm there, my mother, she's living overseas, she would call me and she said, Kereisia, so and so. And there were periodic times my husband would get something. I remember when I was in college, I went on a work and travel program. When I went on the work and travel program, all my friends, they always make a lot of money more than me. I said, God, why can't I make so much money as they make? And the Lord says, you know what? I supply your needs, not your wants. And I'm able to transfer, all of those lessons that I learned to say, God, you know what? In this season, you're providing for my need. You're going to take me out. And every step of the journey, everything that I needed, God would provide it. It might not be how I want it to be provided, but He provides it like, the children of Israel in the wilderness. So I can say that going through what I was going through was a wilderness experience, but I can say like Israelites that my foot was not worn out. When I drive on the highway and I see people, new brand vehicle, break down, I say, God, it's just like the Israelites. You don't allow my feet or my shoes to be worn out. You don't allow my car to be worn out. You don't allow this to happen to me. You preserve me in the midst of everything, right?
And that's the thing, because sometimes we look at others and say, God, these people are getting this way. How comes it that I have to be struggling? And sometimes we have to look and say the mantle that God has for you is not what He has for others. So what it is that you have, they can't carry.
Yeah.
So He's putting you in a position, or you are in a position to carry something, and it may seem as if you're struggling more. But the thing is, you don't know what it is that you're doing to get what you get. Yeah.
So I attribute everything to my faith in the Lord from a tender age, from age 15. And I believe that that's what helps me through this season.
Michele?
So stepping into the role of breadwinner, how did that impact my relationships? Mainly, I don't think like within my family, there wasn't a big change or impact after my divorce when I had to assume that type of responsibility. Most women in my family were the breadwinners already. Like my great grandma, she was single, and she had her children. My grandma, she was married with 11 children. However, my papa, her husband, it was a very toxic relationship. He dealt with alcoholism and dabbled in other things. He was abusive to my grandmother and as well as his children. My grandma was a nurse with 11 kids living in, I believe, a 3-bedroom apartment. So he would come and go as he pleased. He might even come and take her checks. So I don't know if it's just in my blood, the light switch, or when it's time to just take care of business. The women in my family generally did. Even my mother, after my father passed and she remarried, he ended up divorcing her years later. And so she just did what she needed to do. So I don't think that there was a big impact as far as me stepping into that role as a big breadwinner concerning my relationship with my family, because it was just, unfortunately, it was just like second nature. It was just I don't know if it's the stigma, I don't know what it is. If a man don't do what he's supposed to do, you just take over and do what you need to do for your kids. And so I did, maybe even subconsciously, adapt that mindset, so there wasn't a major impact or shift for the family, because it was like, hey, that's what you're supposed to do. You got the kids, you're going to make it happen. With socially, it wasn't, socially, I didn't even pay attention. I know a lot of my peers, I was one of the first ones to get married. I was 24 when we got married. And so, they a lot of them were still even staying at home, with their parents. At the most, I still have the most children. I have 4 children now out of my peers. And so I didn't even look for them to understand, be empathetic or sympathetic, because they hadn't walked my walk. They hadn't been married. Most of them weren't even in relationships. So there wasn't a big impact as far as socially with me becoming the breadwinner, other than I had to take care of business. So anything socially came way after: work, family, church, all that stuff, my children, their activities. So there wasn't a big impact, because people in my family, the women, automatically, unfortunately, had that poor experience with relationships and men, to where they just automatically kind of hopped into that role as the breadwinner.